the point of this talk is to try to demystify a little bit the overrides mechanism and the Bitbake operators. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm Quentin. I work as a BSP engineer at Streaming Limited. And this is a company that is doing smart speakers, basically, or anything that is related to audio. And we do not only software, but hardware as well. And we sell system on modules. So, for example, Raspberry Pi compute module. We do our own, obviously. And you can use it for anything that is related to audio or voice assistants. And our software stack enables the use of Google Cast, Amazon Alexa, Spotify, AirPlay, everything that is related to audio or voice assistants, right? And we have currently 3 open positions. And the one you would be most interested in is the position in the BSP team. So please apply if you are interested. All right, so let's get started with the no surprise operators. So the one that no surprise, basically, really. And so the 3 first operators that you see everywhere is equal, plus equal, and equal plus. And basically, equal is no surprises as in any other languages. So just the assignment operator, and then you have plus equal, which is appending, right? So suffixing something to the current variable. And equal plus is just prepending, and plus equal and equal plus, they respectively add a leading space and a trailing space before doing the appending or prefixing. So in that example, you have guest equal Jasmine and then Christian, and the other way you have Aaron and then Mary. And then as in any other language, if you have, for example, in C, you have A equal A plus 1. If you do A equal 1, then obviously it's going to be overridden, right? So you can see here that the answers from the first example is Jasmine space Christian, and then you have Marie space Aaron, and you can see that they are swapped, and that Muhammad is left on the side for the last example, which is obviously not nice. And then you have kind of the same operators, but without the leading or trailing space. And so dot equal is the same as plus equal, and without the space, the added space, and equal dot is the same as equal plus, right? So in that example, you have the mark that is, you want to cheat your parents and just add the plus after the B, so that you would do it with the dot equal. And then you want to cheat the bank and then say that you have much more money that you actually have. You would be able to prefix the number corresponding to balance you have in your account by doing equal dot. And the same as for the plus equal, if you assign the variable after dot equal, obviously it will make it to the variable. That's pretty normal stuff. Then you have the weak assignment operators, and you have actually 2 kinds. And the first one, you probably could have seen something similar in makefiles, which is the question or equal. This just means that if it was not set before, if the variable was not set before, then you use these defaults, right? And you have the very weak assignment operator, which is question mark equal, which is the same as question mark equal, but it also takes into account question mark. So if question mark equal is used or is set before, is set, and then you also have question mark equal, then the question mark equal will not be taken, but only the question mark. And those are the 3 examples I could think of. So the first one is the default will be what you'll have at the buffet, which is tacos, croissant, baklava, sushi, whatever, and then you want to add to this buffet curry. So in that order, it just works because it is not set before we have the weak assignment. So it just works just fine. Then the second one is the perfect example of what I just explained before, which is if you have a very weak assignment, which is in that case lukum, gyoza, and hummus, right? If you then have a weak assignment, in that case pizza, then pizza is going to be taken and not the lukum, gyoza, hummus thing. And one important thing to understand is that the weak assignment works only before anything else has been done. So basically, when you put it in the recipe, if you have plus equal, equal plus, dot equal, equal dot, or equal before the question mark equal, then the question mark equal won't happen, right? Because a plus equal is going to set the variable even if it doesn't exist. So that is why the last example we have in the buffet only ice cream and not schnitzel and blini. All right, so this is quite an obvious order issue, and you can kind of see, it's pretty straightforward to see it happen. But then you have also non-obvious orders, and this happens within Bitbake because of how you can have, how the metadata is organized. And you have recipes, but you also have configuration files. And let's say in that example, I want to bake some cinnamon buns, right? And in the recipe, you have cinnamon, flour, butter, eggs, and milk and sugar as ingredients. But then, my configuration file is, well, it would be much better and much tastier if I had a glaze and vanilla extract on it. So I just add to the ingredients the glaze and vanilla extract. And the thing is, this actually doesn't do what you think it does, because the result is glaze and vanilla extract only, and not cinnamon, flour, butter, eggs, milk, sugar, as you would expect. So now we have to check, what's happening and how we can debug this. So the most important debug technique you can have about, those variable handling is the following. So it's bitbake-e. Cinnamon buns, so the name of the recipe can be a package recipe or an image recipe. And you pipe this into awk, right? So you have this specific command. And this will show you that for the ingredients variable, right, you have append that is happening in this conf.local.conf file at line 268. And this is appending glaze and vanilla extract. And then only you have to set the weak assignment in this recipe example, cinnamon buns.bb at the line 39. And you can see like the value of the ingredients is glaze vanilla extract. And so thanks for the tip, Joseph, from the Twitch session that we had like a few months ago. And what is important to see, what you see in this is that the configuration files are actually parsed before the recipes, or for that matter, any BB append or include files. So in that case, you actually need, well, a new operator, right? Because you still want to append something from a configuration file. And that is where I introduced the _append and _prepend operators. And they're basically the equivalent of postpones dot equal or equal dot. And to me, I like to say that it's a different pile, or you put post-its on the side on the side of your desks, for example. And the goal of what append and prepend does tell Bitbake about is first resolve question mark equal plus equal plus dot equal dot. Do everything, resolve it, and then and only then you do the _append and prepend. This means that the order, the parsing order is quite different, and you can actually add ingredients from a local configuration file. And that's what you would have in order to make the example work. So _append, and as for the dot equal operator, you need a leading space if you want to add the space, because it's not automatically added as the plus equal would do. And you can check this by running the bitbake-e command again. And you can see there is one tiny change between the two logs, which is, I don't know if you can see that, or you cannot see, but in red, you have the underscore before append. And this is the difference between plus equal and _append, right? And this means that it's just going to be set afterwards. All right, surprise, surprise. Obviously, not everything is straightforward. There are some places in the code that we have third-party layers where you have _append plus equal. And the thing you have to understand is it doesn't do what you think it does. _append plus equal is just the equivalent of _append plus the leading space. And why is that so important is because we're going to see it in the next slide, and also _append works on unset variables. So if you do not have gifts that is set before, in that example, If you do gifts underscore append, then it's going to be set to puzzle. So there is no requirement about the variable being set or not. And why it's important to understand that underscore append plus equal is not doing what you think it does is because underscore append, or prepend for that matter, is just one post-it or a new entry in the pile. So this means that you cannot override an underscore append. So in the following example, you have, my nephew is asking me for Christmas a train, and I understand that he also wants a puzzle. So I just append to the gifts list. And I actually misunderstood, and my nephew wants, actually a doll. So I just append a doll, and I thought that, I would just have train and doll in the variable, but that is not actually true. So my nephew would be happy because 3 gifts, but that's not what he wanted in the first place. So obviously this warrants a new operator to undo whatever was done by having underscore append. And this is where remove comes into play. So the underscore remove is another postpone operator, and it is postponed after underscore append and underscore prepend. So it tells Bitbake to just resolve anything that has been done so far. So the weak assignment operators, then equal plus equal equal plus dot equal equal dot. Then you do the underscore append underscore prepend, and then only you have underscore remove. And this means that underscore remove is final, and it also removes all the occurrences. So in the following example, you have gifts equals train, right? And the same as before, so puzzle and doll. And actually, my nephew didn't want the puzzle, so I just run gifts remove puzzle. And this works just fine. But now, it turns out my nephew actually wanted the puzzle. So I append to gifts, again, the puzzle. The thing is, this doesn't work, as I said, because the underscore remove is done after all the underscore append and underscore prepend is done, which means that the underscore append, so the temporary value of the variable would be gifts, puzzle, doll, puzzle, and then from there you remove puzzle, and obviously you only keep train doll. And yeah, basically you have all the steps involved in the drawing. All right, and obviously since it is final, it is something that you really want to avoid as much as possible, and especially in third-party layers that you are sharing with the community, because it means that once anyone has your layer in their metadata, your remove is going to be applied for any build, and this is not nice. And this also means that you have to think twice before using underscore append and underscore prepend, because then the only way to undo this is to use remove, which you should be avoiding. There is a trick that was suggested by Chris Larson during the same Twitch session, is to use variable inside gifts remove. And the point of this is that if it turns out that you actually don't want to remove this variable, you just have to remove it from, or unset the unwanted gifts variable. And this is super nice if you have if you maintain a third-party layer and still wants to give the ability to your users to undo your remove. All right, and there is one last operator that I can talk about, is the now or immediate expansion operator. And this is very important in even though rarely used, but in one very specific case is needed, is for the files extra path prepend that you would see in BB appends. And basically, you understand now what the files extra path prepend is doing. It's prepending, so in a postpone pile, to files extra path. And the thing is, the issue lies in the dsdir variable, and dsdir is the directory at expansion time. The thing that you have to understand is the variables are expanded only after all the parsing is done, and that is called the flattening. So everything is put into one big recipe, and this is where then dsdir is going to be resolved. So if it is equal, then dsdir is going to be the directory of the original recipe, which is not where you have the files to from your BB append. But if you use the immediate expansion operator, then dsdir is going to point to the currently parsed file, which is the BB append, which is what you want. All right, so the usage, very quickly, in my opinion, would use _append _prepend in BB classes, include files or configuration files, where you actually expect or want to leave the ability to the user to modify your recipe, modify the variable. So one simple example is the CMake class, right? If we want to build a CMake-based software, we are going to abstract everything related to CMake into its own class. And one of the main things that the CMake-based software needs is the CMake to be run on the host. So this is where I add the CMake native to the depends. And in my CMake-based software recipes, I do inherit CMake and then depends equal bash, or for the second recipe, depends equal bash and inherit CMake. And you will see that the order actually matters, because everything is flattened. So you would see in the first example that you would do basically depends plus equal CMake native and then depends equal bash, which means that depends will be set to bash and not that what you expected. So in that case, the order matters, and in my opinion, it shouldn't. And to make it safe, use append or prepend, and this should make it possible to be safe on that side. And the same issue happens when you have two different classes that are inherited, in which case the order in which they are inherited, change the outcome of the parsing. And if you use _append, then it's going to be just fine, whatever the order is. All right. So to end the slide on the usage, _append and _prepend in BB classes include files or configuration files. Also for context-specific additions, I'll talk about it in a few slides. In my opinion, and in Richard's opinion, it should be avoided because it is very hard to override, and then you have to use remove, which is also almost impossible to override. So basically, the best practice that we want to share is that you should inherit some classes, and then and only then set modify append in variables. And in that case, you are pretty safe from the user point of view. All right. So what I call context-specific operators is the following. I will give some real-life examples. And so let's say we have a family, and Omar is the father. And his morning routine includes making breakfast, eating breakfast, going to work, and doing some sport. He also has a daughter that is who is called Elena, and she has slightly different schedule, which is eating breakfast, going to school, nap, and play. And the thing is, if you have this in the same recipe, obviously the morning for Elena is going to override the morning for Omar, right? And this isn't correct because we want to be able to support both morning routine at the same time, in the same recipe. And that is where the _Elena operator comes into play. And this is basically also a new pile for the morning, so variable. And basically the overrides morning _Elena only overrides morning if we are parsing this recipe for Elena. And this is done only after all the common operators are done and well before the _append and _prepend are done. It also means that morning Elena is resolved always, but it is not used even if we are it is not used if we parse the recipe for Omar. So it's still going to be in your bitbake-e output, but it is not going to be used. And you can see here a little bit what's happening behind the scenes. So first we have the pile for the default value, which is what we have for Omar in that example. So you will have morning, the default one, plus equal plus whatever for this one. Then you will have the variable for morning Elena, which is a different file. And you have support also for morning Elena plus equal plus, etc. And after all this, right, you pick the correct morning for the correct person. And on top of this picked morning variable, you can add the morning _append. And now it turns out that the family has a new child. So Elena has a brother who's called Esteban, and basically you can have the same mechanism as for Elena. And Elena and Esteban in Yocto terms would be a machine, right? Then, well, basically you want to avoid copy pasting because Elena and Esteban have the exact same morning routine. It's harder to maintain and it's error prone when you want to make changes for both. So basically what you're going to do is to add a kind, and Elena and Esteban are both children. So I'm just going to add a morning routine for children, and that's it. And the underscore child is using the same mechanism, but it is, in Yocto terms, a machine overrides. And since Elena and Esteban are children, morning is going to be overridden by morning underscore child for them. And for Omar, it's still going to be morning. And it turns out that Elena also has lessons for Hindi language. So she has now a slightly different overridden variable for herself. And what matters here is that the individual is actually more important than the kind. So in Yocto terms, machine would be more important than machine overrides. So in that case, for Elena, we'll have morning underscore Elena, and for Esteban, morning underscore child, and not, that's it, right? Well, it was not really exact in my terms. So machine overrides actually contain the machine variable. And how to read this is the rightmost element in the machine overrides variable is the most important one, and then you go from rightmost to leftmost. And in that case, you can see that Elena has a higher priority than child, and the same for Esteban. All right, so how to combine operators? So now the family has a dog, right? And they want to play with the dog during the morning routine. So, my intuition tells me that plus equal should just work. So morning equal like breakfast. For Omar, you have this morning routine, and then for the children, you have that morning routine. But for both of them, I want them to play with the dog. And if I use plus equal, it doesn't work. And why is the slides that I gave like a few chapters ago. You can see here that morning is set, then you apply the plus equal plus dot equal dot on this default value, and then on another side you have morning Elena, and everything is done on this morning Elena, so plus equal plus, etc. And then out of this you pick the result, the appropriate morning value. So this doesn't work because the plus equal is going to be only applying to Omar. So the way to do it is to use underscore append, because underscore append is going to be added or to the original, to the picked variable only after the variable has been picked. So for children, the base would be morning child, and then on top of this, we will have the append. So if you can see here the actual example with the blocks. So first you pick the appropriate overrides for morning, and then you add the append to it. But now I want to put even more into one place in common, and they all have the same morning. This one element in their morning routine, which is breakfast. So I just put morning equal breakfast, and then I want to append for the children, the school, and the nap and play. And for Omar, I just want to add the make breakfast and work sport, right? On that, my intuition tells me that it's pretty decent. That should work. It actually doesn't, and I'll explain a little bit later why. So morning, so for everyone, morning is going to be breakfast, but for Omar, it's going to be only making breakfast, work, and sport, and for children, it's only going to be only school, nap, and play. And why that is because you need to understand how to read combine operators. And so you have morning, which is the variable. Then you have underscore Omar, which is the pile specific for Omar. Then you have underscore append, which is an additional pile for later. It's postpone operator. So underscore Omar underscore append, what it does, it creates a post-it for Omar reserved pile. And basically for Omar, we would have morning Omar that would replace morning. And then you would have the underscore append that applies on top of this, right? And the other way around is you have the morning variable underscore append underscore omar, and underscore append is going to, it's a pile that is supposed to be handled later. And you have underscore omar, which is only for omar. And it means that underscore append underscore omar is just a way to create a post-it only for omar to be applied on top of the resolved variable. And you're going to see an example, blocks just a little bit later. And morning will be first resolved, then underscore append underscore omar will be added only if we are, if the user is omar. So that's basically what's happening, right? So you have morning for everyone that is done, plus equal equals plus applied to this one. Then you have morning Elena or morning Omar, and morning Omar plus equal equal plus applies to this variable only. Then morning underscore Elena underscore append applies after everything that has been done for Elena, but before you pick morning, for Omar, Elena, or others. Once that's done, then and only then you apply the morning to it. And you can see the difference. You have morning Elena append, which is done before the morning is picked, and then you have morning append Elena that is done after it's been picked, which is what we want. So that is the resulting example, which is morning breakfast. Then you have an append that is specific to children, and then an append that is specific to Omar, and this works just fine. Anyway, when you are in doubt, just use bitbake-e, and it's going to work, and you can figure it out from there. All right, so I have 3 minutes left. I have to speed up a little bit. So you have the same mechanism kind of for files, and you've probably seen this with src right in Bitbake recipes. And you have the file git fetch, file fetcher, which is in that case defconfig. In our case, in the original recipe, I'll have subdirectory, which is called my kernel, and in there you have defconfig. So this defconfig is going to be included for all machines. Then you have my kernel ARX64 defconfig, and this one is used only for ARX64 machines. But you have to understand that there is no change involved in the actual recipe. This is done, implicitly by Bitbake itself. But there is obviously some gotchas to this. And the first one is with the append, and that is something I hit very often, is in the BB append, you tell him just override the defconfig with the files extrapath prepend thingy that we talked about earlier. And I basically have a machine and I want to override the defconfig to this machine, right? So my intuition tells me that I should be able to just put the defconfig directly in the subdirectory, and that is going to be the defconfig that is to be used because it is a BB append, so it has higher priority. And that is wrong, actually, because in that case, everything that is ARX64 based or ARM64 based machines, which is the case for our machine, is going to take the one from the original recipe. And why that is because you have a subdirectory which is ARM64, which comes from the files override variable. Basically, the fetch order is listed in the files path, and you have to check it in order to know, which path are of higher priority than the one that you currently have in the original recipe. So you can do this by checking the value with bitbake -e, etc., or directly going to the log of the do fetch task of the mykernel. All right, so now I want to override this for the ARM64 machines. So I just put the defconfig into a subdirectory which is named ARX64, which matches the original path, and that is going to work. Or I just put a subdirectory for my machine only. In that case, my ARX64 machine, the defconfig will be taken from the BB append, but for ARM64 machines, all the others is going to be taken from the original recipe. And then you have also this example, really simple gotchas, which is when you are including src directory and not the files from within, then to Bitbake, it actually look for the directory only and not the files within. So it means that for this example, the src directory in your recipe is going to be contain only file A from the B append and not file B. All right, you have also other overrides. I don't have much time to go through it. So you have package name, you have the class native variants, libc, the distro, multilib. Then you have also some rarely used thingies. All right, so here are the sources, and I was supposed to talk about the history of overrides. I don't have the time, so here are the two messages you can look at and to understand where it comes from and what was about it. What's next for overrides? Not much. It works. All right, this is the end. Last words for me is thank you for attending. Any questions?